This is the Clark show. You either gonna run the Clark show or you gonna have to pack your bags at the end of this season.
This is the story of a head coach who spent weeks slowly suffocating her own offense, and the moment someone in the Indiana Fever front office finally decided enough was enough. Caitlin Clark is the asset. Caitlin Clark is the money. Caitlin Clark is the single most valuable commodity in the entire Women's National Basketball Association right now. And by the 10-minute mark of this video, you are going to understand exactly why the decision to finally hand her the keys to this offense is not just a basketball story. It is a business story, a survival story, and frankly, a story about what happens when an organization almost destroys its own golden goose before someone upstairs blinks first. Welcome to WNBA X Theory. Let's get into it.
Caitlin Clark, last 4 games, 31 points, 8 assists. 31 points, 8 assists.
Let me set the scene for every single person watching this. Indiana Fever versus the Portland Fire. Road game, high stakes. And walking into this matchup, Caitlin Clark has posted 31 points and 8 assists per game over her last 4 outings. Let me say that again so it lands properly. 31 points, 8 assists, 4 consecutive games. That is not a hot streak. That is a sustained demonstration of elite, franchise-altering, league-saving production. That is what a generational asset looks like when you finally get out of her way and let her operate. And what's fascinating, and by fascinating I mean absolutely staggering, is that this level of output is happening even as the conversation around Caitlin Clark refuses to stay on the court where it belongs. They want to talk about race. They want to talk about anything and everything except the basketball. Meanwhile, the basketball is averaging 31 and 8 over 4 games in a row. That is not hyperbole. That is not me hyping this up. That is simply the math. Now, here is the context that makes this story so much bigger than just a game preview. The Indiana Fever are heading into Portland to face a team that, the last time these two squads met, put a genuine beatdown on Indiana. Portland came out physical, aggressive, and completely unintimidated. And Indiana left that game looking disorganized and outmatched. So the question heading into tonight is not just can Indiana win, the question is, has Stephanie White finally made the philosophical shift that this franchise has been desperately waiting for? And the answer, based on everything we are seeing, appears to be yes. But let me tell you how we got here, because the road to this moment is what makes it so remarkable.
They want to talk about race. They want to talk about trans. They want to talk about this. They want to talk about that.
31 points and 8 assists, 4 games. I want you to sit with that number for a moment, because that number is the entire argument. That number is the rebuttal to every single piece of criticism, every sideshow conversation, every distraction that has been thrown at this player and this franchise. While the noise machine was spinning, the asset was producing, and that production only became possible because of a coaching adjustment that, frankly, should have been the default setting from day one. Here is what the Caitlin Clark system actually looks like when it is running correctly. Ball in her hands, Kelsey Mitchell operating off the ball, getting her buckets off, backdoor cuts, off 2 or 3 dribble pull-ups, maximum. When Clark is on the bench, you run your secondary offense, but when Clark is on the floor, she is the engine, she is the point of attack. She is the reason opposing defenses have to make impossible choices. They cannot play drop coverage on her because she will score 40. That forces them to go under screens, go over screens, send help, send doubles, and every one of those decisions opens up Aaliyah Boston in the pick and roll, opens up Kelsey Mitchell on the weak side, opens up the entire floor. This is not complicated. This is basketball economics 101. Give the ball to the player who makes the defense pay the most for every decision they make. And by yet I mean in a way that should make every Fever fan genuinely furious. This was not always the operating system in Indianapolis. Stephanie White spent a significant portion of this season managing Caitlin Clark's minutes with what was described as a restriction. The asset was being rationed, the golden goose was being told to take a seat, and now, apparently, she played 33 minutes last game. The minutes restriction appears to be gone, which raises a very obvious and very uncomfortable question. What exactly changed? If you are subscribed to WNBA X Theory, you already know we do not let that question slide. And if you are not subscribed yet, right now is the time. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss a single breakdown. This is the kind of analysis you need before the ball tips.
If you already know, the Portland Fire coach is going to say, hey, we are going to get you. We want you to get downhill and ISO Caitlin Clark every chance possible and just run into her and fall and hope that the refs give us some calls.
They want to talk about race. They want to talk about trans. They want to talk about this and that. and I want every single person watching this to understand what that clip represents in the context of tonight's game. It represents the environment that Caitlin Clark has been operating in. An environment where the basketball, the 31 points, and the 8 assists, and the 4-game stretch of elite production is somehow not the primary conversation. An environment where the asset is asked to perform at the highest level while simultaneously being used as a political football by people who have never laced up a sneaker in a professional arena. And what does Caitlin Clark do in response? She puts the ball in the bucket. She puts on a show. She does the thing she has always done, the thing that packed arenas at the University of Iowa, the thing that is currently making the Indiana Fever relevant in a way they have not been in years. She plays basketball loudly, brilliantly, defiantly. Now let me give you the full picture of what Stephanie White walking into the Caitlin Clark system actually means tactically, because this is where it gets genuinely interesting. It is like watching a restaurant owner who spent months telling their head chef to tone down the flavors, keep the portions small, do not make the other cooks feel bad, and then one day the owner looks at the empty tables and the shrinking revenue and finally says, you know what, just cook. Just do what you do. And suddenly the restaurant is packed every night. That is what we are watching unfold in Indiana. The chef is cooking, the tables are full. And the only question now is whether the owner learned the lesson permanently, or whether we are going to be back here in 3 weeks having the same conversation. Because here is what the front office apparently had to do. According to what is being discussed in the basketball community, someone from the Indiana Fever organization, someone with authority, essentially had to pull Stephanie White aside and deliver a very simple message. This is the Clark Show. You either run the Clark Show or you pack your bags at the end of this season. That is not a subtle suggestion, that is a mandate. And the fact that it required a mandate, the fact that it was not the obvious default position from the moment Caitlin Clark stepped onto a professional court, is what makes this story so revealing about the institutional resistance that this asset has had to overcome just to be used correctly. Let me be completely clear about something. This is not an attack on Stephanie White as a person. What this is an examination of a coaching philosophy that was actively working against the franchise's most valuable asset and the business consequences of that philosophical resistance. Because when you have a player averaging 31 points and 8 assists over 4 games, and that player was previously being minutes restricted, the natural question every investor, every sponsor, every television executive, every casual fan who tuned in for the first time because of Caitlin Clark is asking is, why was this not happening sooner?
And at all. I need to see $6 million worth of Aaliyah Boston today. And that's not first, make your bunny.
There it is, and by there it is, I mean there is the entire defensive game plan of the Portland Fire laid out in plain English. Get downhill, ISO Caitlin Clark, run into her, fall, hope the refs give you calls. That is the strategy. That is what a team does when they know they cannot stop the asset with legitimate basketball. They run a foul bait operation. They turn the game into a free throw line contest and a referee management exercise. And this is precisely why the mental fortitude component of tonight's game is just as important as the tactical execution. Think about what is being asked of Caitlin Clark in this environment. She is on the road. The home crowd is hostile. The opposing team's entire game plan is built around making her frustrated, making her feel like every contact she initiates is going to be called against her. Portland's point guard, who averaged 15 points and 6 assists in the previous matchup and, let's be honest, outplayed Clark that night, is going to be physical, aggressive, and relentless. Bridget Carlton on the wing is averaging 14 points and 4 rebounds and can hurt you from 3, from the mid-range, and at the rim. This is not a weak backcourt. This is a real test. And here is where the Caitlin Clark system actually gets stress tested in a meaningful way. Because the pick and roll with Aaliyah Boston, the bread and butter of what Indiana wants to run, only works if Clark can stay composed when the refs inevitably miss a call or give Portland a gift. When she is on the road and the whistles are tilting, the temptation is to get so frustrated that the shot stops falling. That is what the Portland Fire are counting on. They are counting on Clark checking out emotionally, because that is the only version of this game where they win. But here is what is different now. Here is what the 31 points and 8 assists over 4 consecutive games actually tells you. This player is locked in. Mentally, physically, tactically, she is not playing like someone who is managing a minutes restriction. She is not playing like someone who is being told to share the ball in a committee offense. She is playing like the one draw, like the economic engine of this franchise, like someone who has finally handed the keys to her own car and said drive. Now I want to bring in a broader point here, because what we are watching with Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever is not unprecedented in the history of professional basketball. The greatest assets in this sport, and you can look at any era, any league, any franchise that ever went from irrelevant to essential, have always required the organization around them to make a choice. You either build around the asset or you lose the asset and everything the asset represents. The franchises that got it right did so because someone in a position of power looked at the business reality and made the call. The franchises that got it wrong are cautionary tales. And the Indiana Fever, for a significant stretch of this season, were flirting with becoming a cautionary tale. The minutes restriction was not just a basketball decision, it was a business decision, and it was the wrong one. What's fascinating, and by fascinating I mean genuinely alarming when you frame it in financial terms, is that the Indiana Fever have a player who is currently the single biggest draw in the Wnba. Arenas that were half empty are now selling out. Broadcast numbers that were an afterthought are now being discussed in boardrooms. Sponsors are paying attention. The entire financial trajectory of this franchise changed the moment Caitlin Clark arrived, and the response to that, for a period of time, was to manage her minutes, to restrict her, to run a committee offense around a player who is categorically not a committee offense player. It is like owning a Ferrari and insisting on driving it in second gear because you are worried about the engine. The engine is fine. The engine is averaging 31 and 8. Put it in drive.
No, this is the Clark Show. You either gonna run the Clark Show or you gonna have to pack your bags at the end of this season.
$6 million worth of Aaliyah Boston. I love that framing, and I want to use it to make a broader point about how every single piece of this Indiana Fever roster needs to be evaluated tonight through the lens of the Caitlin Clark system, because the Clark system does not just benefit Clark. It benefits everyone around her. When Clark has the ball in her hands, running the pick and roll, Aaliyah Boston is getting $6 million opportunities. She is getting 3-on-2 situations on the backside. She is getting clean looks in the paint against a Portland defense that is scrambling to contain the primary threat. Kelsey Mitchell is getting open looks on the weak side. The entire offense breathes when the ball is in Clark's hands, because every defender on the floor has to account for what she can do, and that is the business case in its purest form. The asset does not just produce for herself. The asset makes everyone around her more valuable. The asset raises the floor of the entire roster, and the asset, averaging 31 points and 8 assists over 4 games, is doing this on a back that is listed as probable on the injury report every single game. She is playing through it, she is producing through it. She is not asking for sympathy or accommodations, she is asking for the ball in her hands and the freedom to run her offense, and when she gets those two things, the results speak for themselves. Now let me talk about the specific failure points that Indiana cannot afford to repeat tonight, because this is where the verdict gets delivered. The Fever gave up somewhere between 16 and 17 offensive rebounds against the Seattle Storm. 16 or 17. Let me put that in context. Every offensive rebound you surrender is a second chance possession for the opponent. It is a free possession that they did not earn through their own execution. It is the basketball equivalent of handing a competitor your own revenue. Aaliyah Boston, who is being paid $6 million to be the defensive anchor of this team, has to own the glass tonight. She has to finish around the rim, because missed layups are also costing this team possessions. And she has to be the kind of defensive presence that makes Portland's bigs think twice before attacking the paint. Beyond Boston, the Indiana backcourt has a genuine test on their hands. Portland's point guard is 15 points and 6 assists per game. She was the best player on the floor the last time these teams met. She is aggressive, she draws fouls, and she is going to have the home crowd behind her. Bridget Carlton on the wing is 14 points and 4 rebounds and can beat you in multiple ways. Indiana's backcourt, with Clark at the helm, has to be the aggressor, not the reactor. They have to set the tone defensively and not let Portland get into a rhythm off the free throw line. And from the bench, Indiana needs a contributor. Sophie Cunningham, the Blam Bomber, has shown she can catch fire from 3-point range and change the complexion of a game in a matter of minutes. Michaela Timpson can provide energy and production. Ty Harris has shown flashes. Someone from that second unit has to show up tonight, because Kelsey Mitchell is going to get her 20, Clark is going to do what she does, and Boston needs to be the anchor, but you cannot win road games on 3 players alone. The bench has to contribute. Here is my verdict. Here is what I believe happens tonight, and what I believe it means for the rest of this season. Stephanie White has made the adjustment. The Caitlin Clark system is now the operating system. The minutes restriction is gone. 33 minutes last game is the evidence. And when Caitlin Clark gets 33 plus minutes running her offense, with the ball in her hands, with the pick and roll as the primary action, with Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston operating in their correct roles around her, this Indiana Fever team is very, very difficult to beat. Even on the road, even in a hostile environment, even against a Portland Fire team that is physical, aggressive, and has beaten Indiana before. When Clark is on the road and the refs are going to tilt toward the home team, and they will, because that is the reality of professional basketball, the mental discipline piece is the variable. When she stays composed, when she does not let the frustration of bogus calls derail her shot making, when she channels that competitive energy into execution rather than reaction, Indiana wins this game. And not just wins, Indiana makes a statement that the revenge tour is real. A statement that the team that got beaten in Portland last time is not the same team walking into Portland tonight. That 31 points and 8 assists over 4 games is not the ceiling, that is the baseline. That is what Caitlin Clark looks like when the system is finally built around her properly. And every single person watching this needs to understand what that baseline means for the trajectory of this franchise. It means the Indiana Fever are now a genuine threat. It means the asset is being deployed correctly. It means the front office made the right call when they pulled Stephanie White aside and delivered the message. And it means that any team in this league that is not game planning specifically and obsessively for Caitlin Clark is going to get exactly what Portland got the last time they underestimated what she can do when she is locked in. 31 points, 8 assists, 4 games in a row. Remember that number, because by the end of this season, you are going to be citing it as the moment the Indiana Fever stopped playing around and started playing for real.
Caitlin Clark, last 4 games, 31 points, 8 assists. 31 points, 8 assists.
Before we close, I need you to do something for me. Drop your honest take in the comments right now. Forced choice, yes or no. Is Stephanie White's coaching philosophy the biggest obstacle standing between Caitlin Clark and a championship, yes or no? Drop it below. I read every single comment on this channel and I want to know where this community stands. That debate is going to be explosive and I want to see it. If you found this breakdown valuable, and I know you did, subscribe to Wnba X2A right now and turn on all notifications. We drop these breakdowns before, during, and after every major Indiana Fever moment, and you do not want to be the person who missed the next one because the algorithm did not show it to you. Hit the bell, turn on all notifications. That is how you stay ahead of this story. And click the video on your screen right now, because we have got more Caitlin Clark coverage that goes even deeper into what this system change means for Indiana's playoff chances, and you are going to want to see it. This is Wnba X2A. We'll see you in the next one.
They want to talk about race. They want to talk about trans. They want to talk about this. They want to talk about that. If you already know, the Portland Fire coach is going to say, hey, we are going to get you. We want you to get downhill and ISO Caitlin Clark every chance possible and just run into her and fall and hope that the refs give us some call. And at all, I need to see $6 million worth of Aaliyah Boston today. And that's just not, first, make your bunny